This could be heaven.
I have been lurking around here for a while, reading these stories. It is about time that I share a creepy experience I had in my childhood. I'm not sure how it comes across via text, but hey, it is worthwhile sharing. I'm a 31-year-old male from Eindhoven, the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, we've got many houses that are attached to one another, especially on long streets. In the case of my parents' home, across the street were the exact same type of houses, divided by a 2-lane road. If you look outside the window, you look straight at the opposite house. It was my 11th birthday, around 11 o'clock in the evening. The last guest had left our house and it was time to go to bed. Just before I got up, the lights in the house across ours went on one by one, and I saw Angela, the woman living there, walking frantically around her house. She was somewhere in her 40s, your average, slightly clunky housewife. She lived there all by herself, though. All of her blinds were open, so I could see her every move. One big window for the living room and 2 smaller ones above that. I saw her walking back and forth, up and down for I guess about 20 minutes. Then all of a sudden, Queen's "This Could Be Heaven" started playing really loud, perpetually. When it finished, it played again and again. Then she came out, only wearing her panties, and stood in the middle of the road. My folks decided to check on her, and she did nothing but talk in gibberish. In her hand, she had a bag of tea lights. She lit them one by one and placed them on the road in a circle. She laid down on the floor in that circle. By chance, a friend of the family drove by with his shovel truck and stopped. She got up, put one of the tea lights in a shovel, and told him to run her over. "It is time for me to die," she said. He got out of the truck and pushed her in her house and closed the door. My parents were so shocked. They just stared outside and didn't realize that this was not for the eyes of a child. My mom closed the blinds. I went to bed, and pretty much immediately, I had horrible nightmares. I dreamt about frightening orange illuminating figures on our blinds, skeletons and whatnot. I don't really recollect so well anymore. I woke up, ran down and sought solace and comfort with my parents. I guess it was around midnight when my dad opened the blinds. There was Angela, pressed up against our window, eyes wide open, looking straight at me. She was mouthing words so fast and frantically that I could not decipher what she said by any means. Then, an ambulance came out of nowhere and took her away. I guess our friend called the emergency number. I never saw her again, and please, for the sake of my heart, Angela, let's not meet again. To this day, I cannot listen to "This Could Be Heaven."
Angry, alcohol-fueled ex-convict whose assault went a little too far.
My idiot mom dated a convict while she was a psychologist at the Kingston Pen. He was in for a very long sentence for aggravated assault, and my mother met him close to the end of his sentence. She eventually was fired after being caught, for the 2nd or 3rd time, having sex with him in a utility closet. But I digress. When he was being released, My mother asked me to pick him up from prison and drive him to the airport, and I, embarrassed to admit, stupidly agreed. So my boyfriend at the time and I go pick up Dick Knuckle, and not 45 minutes into our 3-hour trip after picking him up, he turns around and starts punching my boyfriend in the face, busting his nose and lip. I start yelling at him to stop, and he starts beating on me, punching me in my arms and legs. Mind you, I'm driving about 145 kilometers, 90 miles per hour, on the highway, with no exit in sight. I just want to add, this guy is a big fucking dude, 6 foot something and probably over 200 pounds of muscle, covered in tats, the whole shebang. Anyway, I pull off to the side of the highway, get out, throw his bag on the side of the road and scream at him until he gets out of my car before speeding home. I want to remind you this all happened on a Monday. Wednesday rolls around and I get a text from my brother telling me to call him ASAP. So I do, and he tells me mom is in the hospital in a coma, hooked up to machines, feeding tube, etc. She had broken both orbital sockets, her jaw was broken, she was missing many teeth, shattered collarbone, she cracked her sternum and had multiple broken ribs. She needed reconstructive surgery on her face and metal plates put in. She has nerve damage now and can't smile on the right side of her face. She has trouble eating too because she can't tell whether or not she has food dripping down her face. And for the longest time, she could only drink through a straw. What had happened was, after I kicked dipshit out of my car, the cops found him wandering on the side of the freeway and took him to the airport. Tuesday night he arrived. He got hammered drunk and beat the shit out of my mother. He started at 11 p.m. and nobody stepped in until 3 a.m. First responders didn't show up until 4. I guess a couple people witnessed it going down, but didn't intervene until they saw Douche Canoe choke my mom out and start carrying her towards the tree line to finish the job in privacy. My mom now suffers from extreme PTSD. It controls every aspect of her life. She's a fucking mess, the equivalent of a human puddle, I'd say. So, convict that will not be named, let's not meet again. Also, I wanted to add, my mother dug her own grave. Don't pity her. That's absurd. There's a lot more to her crazy relationship with him that I left out because I didn't feel it was relevant to the story. Things like her smuggling drugs into prison for him, the police busting down the door and arresting him in the house for another crime. The blood my mom had to clean off the walls after was insane. Him drinking again and jumping out of my car to harass other drivers whilst waiting at a red light when I was taking him to the store. Things like that.
Man under my daughter's bed.
This happened about 6 months ago. I was 22 at the time. My daughter was only 4. I lived in a 2-story house with just me, my daughter, and my husband. I was taking at-home classes to be an iPhone specialist, starting at 5 p.m. and ending at 10 p.m., Monday through Friday. My husband had left for his 2 weeks of training he does every year for the military, so it's just me, my daughter, and our pit bull mix, Mavis. I had just finished my classes for the week and had the weekend free, so I decided to go to my mother's house until Sunday. So I packed up my stuff and my daughter's stuff, and we went for the weekend. We returned home Sunday to find someone had broken into our home. There are muddy footprints and the windows are open, but nothing was missing. I was going to call the police, but my sister's husband explained that the cops wouldn't do anything. Nothing happened that night, but the next day my mother came over to pick up my daughter so I could do my classes without worrying what she was into. They left, and I went to watch the class upstairs. I put headphones on so I could hear my instructor teach the class, but swear I keep hearing stuff downstairs. I even text my mom and told her I heard stuff downstairs and it was creeping me out, but she assured me it was probably just Mavis because everything was locked up tight and no one could get in. I agreed, thinking I was probably just freaking myself out. I continued listening to my instructor teach, and I swear I heard footsteps on the stairs, so I hurry up and take my headset off and listen. I didn't hear anything. I walked down the stairs and didn't see anything either, so I went back to class. At 10 p.m. my class was over, and my mom decided to just keep my daughter for the night. I was doing my homework with Mavis upstairs when all of a sudden she started barking and growling and ran downstairs. Now, Mavis usually barks and growls at the slightest noise outside, so I didn't think much of it, but I decided I should check it out anyway because of what happened while I was at my mother's. Again, nothing out of the ordinary, so I went back upstairs. I was finally done with homework and it's about midnight, so I went downstairs and called my mom like I always do. We were talking and I decided to open my daughter's door and peek my head in. I don't know why I did this because my daughter was at my mom's for the night. Just a habit, I guess. I should have mentioned earlier that when you look in my daughter's room, her bed is on the far wall, a good ways away from the door, so you can clearly see under her bed. So I opened the door, and to my horror, a man is under her bed. I just froze and didn't move, just stood there in shock. After what felt like minutes, I slowly shut the door and whisper into the phone to my mom that there's a man in my house under my daughter's bed. My mom was terrified, and she screamed at me to get outside and to stay on the phone with her, and she had my brother call the police. So I ran outside with Mavis and waited for the police to arrive. About 3 minutes later, they came and searched my house and found no one. But they discovered my bathroom window was open, and they happened to shine their light at the living room window, and I could clearly see 2 huge handprints where they slid the window down. The cops waited for my mom and brother to get there, and while we were waiting, they told me about this man that usually stays 2 houses down from mine with his parents. Both of his parents have a pretty bad drug habit, and this guy has been known to put women in the hospital and trying to kill them. What scares me even more is since we have bought this house, my daughter has been terrified and always told my mom that she wanted to stay with her because it wasn't safe at mommy's house. I didn't think too much of it because I thought maybe it was just a new place, and you know how kids are with new places. After this whole thing happened, I stayed with my mom until my husband came home. We decided to ask our daughter about the house, and what she told me absolutely terrified me. She said that at night, while her dad and I sleep, monsters come to her window and try to get in. She says it's a boy monster and a girl. The next day, we installed alarms on all the windows and security lights. I can't stop questioning why. Why was this man under my daughter's bed? Was he waiting for me to go to sleep? Was he waiting for my mom to bring my daughter back home and for me to put her to bed? I get sick to my stomach thinking of what could have happened.